It's Meika's Safehouse on the Pet Channel on TVU with your host, Ian Sprague. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing really good, James. How about yourself?
Good, good. I think, our pre-show conversation, we have an interesting one. So go ahead.
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is one of the common problems that people with pet birds have, and it can be deadly, and it's called egg binding. So a lot of young hens, even older hens, uh, it's something that can happen, and it's basically an egg is formed in their body. They start to pass it, and somewhere along the line in the oviduct or further on, the egg gets stuck, and she the muscles aren't contracting. She can't pass the egg, and what can happen after a while is that they basically die of exhaustion trying to push that egg out. Or what also could happen is the egg could break inside, and then actually, and then they poison. They die of poisoning when that happens. Um, so there's a couple reasons why egg binding happens. Sometimes it is just a natural cycle of things, and this can happen. Other thing that is happening is sometimes we stimulate uh, the hen into going into an egg producing mode, right? And that happens a lot of times by, when you're touching a bird, when you're petting a bird, you should really only stick to their head, their neck up, right? That's the part of the bird you should touch. You shouldn't touch their wings, their behind their back, their tail, of course, and because then you can very easily, Derek, right? And then very easily you can have a bird that goes into a hormonal response. She wants to lay eggs, and she has nowhere to do it because we haven't provided a nesting box or a male or all these other things that need to go into it. So they're half stimulated, right? So that egg production starts, and they got nowhere to go. So ideally, if you have an egg, a bird that's trying to lay an egg, and you've recognized it as, oh, this is an egg binding situation, look for swelling down by their vent. That's an egg sitting there and nowhere to go. First thing you really need to look at is the temperature correct for this? They need, because of their body's metabolism is so much hotter and so much stronger than this, they need to be in a really warm situation. So we would recommend putting them in a hospital cage or a smaller enclosure that's really, really warm. So even if it's 30 degrees outside, we want it to be 45 degrees inside that cage, right? And so we'll do a lot of things with hot water bottles, heating pads, blankets over top the cage, just to keep all the heat that we can get in there. And that will help the bird focus on not necessarily keeping its energy for maintaining its body heat, but it'll also help maintain their muscle structure to help push the egg out, right? The other thing that will happen is they'll be low in calcium. So what we'll do is, ideally, if you know your bird's an egg layer, which some of them are, you'll always provide a mineral calcium, either in the form of a cuttle bone like this, or a liquid calcium supplement in their drinking water. Just every time they get into that season, you make sure they have lots of calcium. Calcium is one of those things that has it's a double-edged sword. It does great things. It helps produce a really healthy shell on the egg, which makes it easy to pass. And also, the muscles need calcium in the muscles in order to contract. Right? If you get low in calcium, then your muscles just don't have the strength to contract any longer, and they'll basically go into like a seizure mode. Right? The muscles just cramp right up, and nothing's getting laid, and that's when it's almost dying of exhaustion, is how I always kind of explain it. So make sure they got lots of calcium, even if you're in the middle of an egg binding situation. I would take a little bit of liquid calcium in a syringe and straight in their mouth. You just force it in there. Yeah, it's probably a little on the too late side, by the time you're doing that, but you're hoping for anything, right? So that's just a last ditch effort. The one thing you don't want to get into too much is you don't want to be constantly fiddling with the bird. You want the bird in a hospital cage, you want the temperature maintained. You want them to be able to have water and a little bit of food in there, and just leave them be. And really, and just watch. Don't. It's always so tempting as people to get your hands in there and start poking around. It's really important you don't do that. Just let her be and really watch. If the egg doesn't pass within 24 hours, I get on the phone to a vet. Don't necessarily move the bird yet, but talk to the vets. Let them know how long this has been going on, and where she's at with it, right? And then you'll get a good idea what to do. That gives the vet a chance to prepare as well. A lot of times, you just wait. But what can happen is if the egg's misshaped, or if the bird is completely depleted, just exhausted, they'll have to extract the egg, and that's a veterinary procedure well out of my hands. So that's kind of just egg binding in a nutshell. We can go into really deep corners of it, but that's really a veterinarian's realm once we get into it. And we're definitely not veterinarians.
No,
we're just doing our,
yeah.
the best husbandry possible we can do on our end.
Yeah, and it's good wisdom and good insight. As a person's getting prepared to adopt a very sophisticated bird.
Oh, absolutely. And if for some reason you come down the stairs and you look at your bird cage, and all of a sudden your bird's sitting at the bottom of the cage, kind of listless.
You got to be on the alert.
You need to kind of run down. Oh, geez, what are the things that it could be? There's no sense, freaking out about poisons if it's egg binding. There's no sense, there's no sense worrying about egg binding if it's a boy, right? So,
yeah.
Well,
so and then the insight in how their physiology works and how they trigger their reproduction, and just being aware of that and just touching a bird on its head so you're not messing with it, right? And
you're not
flicking
unwanted signals.
Well, flicking all these triggers, switches inside its physiology itself, and damaging the bird. And who do you have here today?
This is Derek. Derek's a little green cheek conure. He has a neurological issue of some sort, and we're not really sure what it is. My suspicion is that he's done really hit a wall or a window really hard. He's much better now, but when he first came, he had like a head tremor, and that seems to be really dying down. But I notice it does come back if he gets really excited. He'll start, he gets his head tremor thing back. But he has been he's really come a long way. He was a bird that was deemed unhandleable. They said, oh, he bites, he flies, he's mean and all that. And, honestly, with a little bit of time and some simple training, he come a long way from that. He was just scared at first, scared of his own shadow, but now he's pretty calm. He's pretty relaxed. He's going to help cream my hair a little bit. And other than that, that's a green cheek conure.
Green cheek conure.
Yeah.
And so he's basically ready to go.
He is. He's ready to go. He's and you know what? I think he's a bird that he's not very loud. So he's great for an apartment setting. He could do that pretty easily. He wouldn't be bothering the neighbors. He's got a good routine on him. He likes to be out, but he also is quite happy to go to his cage and hang out there too. He's just finishing his molt. We were talking about the molt last time. So he's right at the end of that. So he's doing really good.
That's good. That's good. And what's happening in the parrot world with the shows and the trips? Any news?
Well, there's an announcement coming up for the Parrot Walk, and I've got kind of the inside track on it. It sounds to me like it is going to be July 19th. I'll take my GoPro along.
Nice.
And we'll do just a little bit of on that. And I don't have the location in front of me, but I will get that to you for sure.
Yeah.
And
so that's
it is
on the
it's a
19th.
fun thing.
Yeah,
I think
so
it's going to be over by like Emily Murphy Park, somewhere in there.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's great news. That's great news. Meika Safehouse on the Pet Channel on TVU with your host, Ian Sprague. Have a great day.
Right on.